Captain Alex Porter stood motionless on the bridge of the United Earth Coalition vessel Defiant. The view screen showed what remained of the Proxima B colony, smoking ruins where a thriving settlement of 5,000 people had stood just 3 days ago. His hands gripped the command rail until his knuckles turned white. "Scan for survivors," he ordered, his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. Lieutenant Erin Mason worked her console with quick, efficient movements. "Sir, I'm detecting one life sign in what appears to be the medical center. The building's structural integrity is at 40%. Porter nodded. "Prepare a rescue team. I'll lead it myself." The shuttle descended through Proxima B's thin atmosphere. Porter watched through the viewport as they approached the devastation. The colony's main square, once filled with markets and gatherings, was now a crater. Residential blocks had been reduced to twisted metal and ash. Whatever hit this place hadn't just attacked, it had methodically destroyed everything. The rescue team landed near the damaged medical center. With weapons ready, they moved through the rubble. The silence was unnerving. No birds, no insects, not even the hum of surviving equipment. "Over here," called Sergeant Ben Lucas, gesturing toward a partially collapsed doorway. They found her in what had been an emergency bunker below the medical center, a woman in her 40s with short gray hair and a lab coat stained with blood and soot. She held a makeshift weapon made from a broken piece of medical equipment. "I'm Captain Alex Porter of the UEC Defiant," he said, lowering his weapon. "We're here to help." The woman studied him for a long moment before lowering her improvised weapon. "Dr. Laura Wright," she finally said, "Chief Medical Officer of Proxima Colony." Her voice was hoarse, likely from smoke inhalation. Back aboard the Defiant, Dr. Wright sat in the briefing room, hands wrapped around a mug of hot tea she hadn't touched. The medical team had treated her injuries, but the hollow look in her eyes remained. "They came without warning," she began, staring at something beyond the bulkhead. 3 ships, sleek and black like obsidian. At first we thought they might be traders from one of the outer systems. She took a shaky breath. Governor Harris sent the standard greeting. Their response was to vaporize our communications tower. Porter leaned forward. "Did they identify themselves?" Wright nodded. "They called themselves the Vorkath. After the first attack, they broadcast a message to all frequencies. Said we were territorial infringements that needed to be cleansed from this sector." "What happened next?" asked Commander Pete Donovan, Porter's second-in-command. "They were systematic. First they targeted our defenses, not that we had much beyond basic shield generators. Then they hit the spaceport to prevent evacuations. After that they started on the residential sectors." Wright's hand trembled, spilling tea onto the table. "I was in surgery when the attacks began. We moved as many patients as we could to the underground levels." "How did you survive?" Porter asked gently. "Pure luck. I went back up for more medical supplies when a direct hit collapsed the entrance behind me. Must have read as debris in their scans." Wright finally looked up, meeting Porter's eyes. "I hid for 3 days listening to them methodically destroy everything we had built." Porter nodded to Lieutenant Mason, who placed a small metallic object on the table. "We found this in the ruins of the governor's office," Mason explained. "It appears to be some kind of message crystal." Wright stared at it. "They left that behind. Deliberately." Porter tapped his comm badge. "Bridge, route display capabilities to the briefing room." The lights dimmed, and Porter activated the crystal. A holographic image appeared above the table, a reptilian figure with iridescent scales and vertical pupils. When it spoke, its voice was a harsh clicking sound, translated by an unseen computer. "Humans of the Proxima settlement, your presence here violates Vorkath sovereign territory. This sector has been claimed by the Vorkath hierarchy for future expansion. Your elimination serves as notice to your species. Withdraw from all territories beyond your home system or face similar cleansing actions. The hierarchy has spoken." The message ended, leaving the room in silence. "Have they attacked other colonies?" Wright asked. "Not that we know of," Porter replied. "Proxima B is our farthest permanent settlement." Commander Donovan's face darkened. It's a first strike. They're testing our response. Porter stood. Dr. Wright will get you medical attention on Earth. I need to contact Earth Command immediately. In his private quarters, Porter established a secure connection with Earth Command. Admiral Samantha Kelly's face appeared on screen, her expression grim as Porter reported the situation. Casualty count? Kelly asked. 987 confirmed dead. 1 survivor. Kelly closed her eyes briefly. When she reopened them, Porter saw something cold and determined there. I'm sending you the message, Crystal. Data and all our sensor readings from the colony, Porter continued. I've seen enough, Kelly said after viewing the Vorkath message. She typed something on her console, then looked back at Porter. Captain, I've just authorized Protocol Omega. Porter's breath caught. Protocol Omega meant full military engagement. Not just defense, but war. The Fifth Fleet is already being mobilized. The Defiant will rendezvous with them at these coordinates. Kelly transmitted the data. We're also recalling all civilian ships from potential conflict zones. Admiral, are we certain this is the right response? We know nothing about their capabilities or numbers. Kelly's expression didn't change. What we know is they massacred nearly 5,000 civilians to send a message. That's the only information I need. She leaned closer to the screen. The Vorkath think they've calculated our response correctly. They believe we'll retreat to Earth, draw boundaries, negotiate. They've mistaken our exploration for weakness. And if they're stronger than we anticipate? Porter asked. A small, grim smile touched Kelly's lips. Then they should have killed us all the first time. Humanity has faced extinction before, Captain. It didn't take then either. She straightened in her chair. The Defiant is our fastest ship. I need you to deliver something to the nearest Vorkath outpost we can locate. What message am I delivering? Not a message, a response. Kelly's eyes were like steel. We've tracked their ship's trajectory. There's a Vorkath forward base 2 light-years from Proxima B. You'll be given special ordnance for delivery. Porter understood. The Defiant would fire the first shot of the counterattack. You have your orders, Captain. Earth out. Before the connection terminated, Kelly added something that would soon become famous throughout human space. Looks like it's going to be a good day for Mayhem. As Porter returned to the bridge, he felt a strange calm. The Vorkath had made a fundamental error in their calculations about humanity. They had studied human technology, perhaps even human physiology, but they had failed to understand human nature. They had started a war, and humans were about to show them exactly what that meant. The Vorkath High Command facility hung in orbit around a gas giant, its black spires extending like claws against the swirling orange backdrop. Inside the central chamber, Supreme Commander Razak studied the holographic display of their recent victory at the human colony. The message has been delivered, said General Voss, his second-in-command. The humans will understand their position now. Razak's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of satisfaction among his kind. Their response? None yet. Their ships have retreated from nearby sectors. As predicted, they are withdrawing to their home system. Razak made a clicking sound of approval. Prepare the next phase. We will give them time to evacuate their outer colonies before we claim them. Is that wise? Perhaps we should press our advantage while they are disorganized. Unnecessary. Our analysis indicates humans lack the stomach for prolonged conflict. They are traders and explorers, not warriors. The alert siren cut through their conversation. Red lights flashed across the command center as officers rushed to their stations. Report, Razak demanded. Multiple human vessels approaching, sir, a junior officer called out. They've already passed our outer sensor grid. Impossible, Voss hissed. Their ships aren't that fast. The view screen activated, showing a formation of ships unlike anything in their database. At the lead was a sleek vessel with UEC Defiant marked on its hull. They should have needed at least 2 more days to mobilize a response, Voss said, mandibles clicking in agitation. Open communication channels, Razak ordered. Before the command could be executed, the first explosions rocked the station. Lieutenant William Grant checked his oxygen levels one more time, as his team drifted silently toward the Vorkath flagship. 6 humans in stealth suits designed to absorb scanner waves rather than reflect them. They looked like shadows moving against the stars. "Remember," he whispered into his comm, "we need to place the quantum disruptors at these exact points." The schematic appeared in their helmet displays. "The shields will go down for exactly 3 minutes and 45 seconds. The fleet needs every second of that window." His team responded with green status lights rather than words. Sound might travel through their suit-to-suit comms, but discipline traveled through their actions. They reached the outer hull undetected. While the Vorkath focused their sensors outward on the approaching human fleet, they never thought to look for threats already at their door. Grant placed a small device against the dark metal. It hummed softly, analyzing the composition before extending microscopic filaments into the material. 30 seconds later, a section of hull the size of a dinner plate simply disappeared as its molecular bonds were temporarily suspended. One by one, they slipped inside. The interior of the Vorkath ship was dimly lit with reddish light. The atmosphere was hot and thick with moisture, perfect for the reptilian species but uncomfortable for humans even in their sealed suits. "Move fast," Grant ordered. "We have 18 minutes before the fleet arrives in firing range." They split into 3 teams, each heading toward different parts of the massive ship. Grant and Specialist Judy Chen made their way toward what intelligence suggested was the main shield generator. They encountered 3 Vorkath crew members along the way. Silent stun weapons ensured they wouldn't raise alarms. "This technology is incredible," Chen whispered as they entered the shield control room. The machinery pulsed with an eerie blue light, mechanisms moving in complex patterns. "I've never seen anything like it." "Admire it later," Grant replied, placing the first quantum disruptor on the central console. "Plant your device on that. Power coupling." As Chen moved to comply, the door slid open. A Vorkath engineer froze at the sight of the 2 humans. Its hand moved toward an alarm panel. Grant's weapon fired before the alien could react. The Vorkath dropped to the floor with a heavy thud. "That'll alert them to something wrong," Grant said. "Status on other teams?" "Team 2 has placed their disruptors," came the reply through his comm. "Team 3 encountered resistance but reports success. Set timers for synchronized activation, 3 minutes." On the bridge of the UEC Valiant, Admiral Kelly watched the tactical display as the human fleet approached the Vorkath station. 37 ships, not their entire force, but enough to send a message. "Any response to our hails?" she asked. "None, Admiral," reported Communications Officer Ryan Diaz. "They're scanning us heavily, though." Kelly nodded. "They're trying to figure out how we got here so quickly." A small smile crossed her face. "Let them wonder." The truth was simple but would seem impossible to the Vorkath. The moment news of Proxima B's destruction reached Earth, humanity had mobilized with a speed born from centuries of preparing for the worst. Ships kept in reserve activated mothballed engines. Civilian vessels were temporarily commissioned. Every available pilot and crew member was called to duty. The Vorkath had studied human technology, but failed to understand human determination. "Special Operations Team reports devices planted," announced Tactical Officer Chris Boyd. "Activation in 30 seconds." Kelly straightened in her chair. "All ships, prepare to fire the moment those shields drop. Target weapons systems and engines only. We want their station intact." "Why not destroy them completely?" asked her first officer. Kelly's eyes remained on the display. "Because we need them to deliver our message to their leadership." Inside the Vorkath command center, alarms blared as systems began failing across the station. "What's happening?" Rizak demanded. "Our shields are failing," reported a panicked technician. "Something is disrupting the harmonic frequencies." "Impossible. How could they?" The station shuddered as the first wave of human weapons fire struck its now unprotected hull. Precision targeting knocked out defensive systems one by one. "Return fire," Voss shouted. "Weapons offline," came the reply. Within minutes, the pride of the Vorkath fleet was dead in space, its engines disabled, weapons silent, and communications limited to short range only. On the main viewer, they watched as human ships surrounded them in perfect formation. They could destroy us, Voss said quietly. Why aren't they? The communication system crackled to life. A human female appeared on screen, Admiral Kelly, though the Vorkath didn't yet know her name. Vorkath Command, she said, her voice calm and measured. You attacked one of our colonies without provocation. You killed nearly 5,000 civilians to send a message. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Consider this our reply. She gestured off screen, and the transmission switched to show something that made Rizak's blood run cold. Footage of human ships attacking 11 other Vorkath outposts simultaneously across 3 sectors. How? He whispered. Our intelligence said they didn't have the numbers. The transmission returned to Kelly. You believed we would retreat. You believed we would negotiate. You were wrong. She leaned forward slightly. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is humanity informing you of a simple fact. You started this war. We will finish it. The transmission ended, leaving the Vorkath leaders staring at each other in stunned silence. They had expected fear. They had expected diplomatic pleas. They had expected capitulation. They had not expected this. Commander Daniel Clark looked out the viewport of his vessel, the Pathfinder. What had once been a simple mining ship now bristled with experimental weapons and stealth technology. Behind him, a fleet of 60 similar vessels waited in the shadow of a small moon. None of them were warships. All had been repurposed from civilian crafts in just under 2 weeks. Status report, he said to his crew. Lieutenant Grace Miller looked up from her console. Vorkath supply convoy approaching exactly as predicted. 6 cargo vessels, 2 escort ships. They're maintaining standard formation. Clark nodded. The Vorkath were nothing if not consistent. That was their greatest weakness. Is your algorithm certain about their response pattern? He asked. Miller nodded. 93% confidence. When attacked, they will retreat along this vector. She highlighted a path on the tactical display. And right into the rest of our fleet. Clark had chosen Miller for this mission because of her unique talent. Before the war, she had been developing predictive models for stellar weather patterns. When the Vorkath attacked, she had immediately adapted her work to predict alien behavior instead. Her accuracy was uncanny. All ships, final positions, Clark ordered. Prepare to engage on my mark. The repurposed mining vessels silently moved into position, using minimal power to avoid detection. Their new weapons were untested in real combat, but simulations showed they would be effective against Vorkath shields. They're entering the kill zone, Miller reported. Clark took a deep breath. Mark. The Pathfinder and 5 other ships emerged from hiding, weapons charging. The Vorkath escort vessels reacted immediately, moving to defensive positions. They're scanning us, reported his tactical officer. Their weapons are powering up. Fire, Clark ordered calmly. The new weapons fired pulses of blue energy that seemed to bend space slightly as they traveled. When they hit the first Vorkath ship, they didn't explode. Instead, they created expanding fields that disrupted the alien vessel's power systems. Direct hits on both escorts, the tactical officer called out. Their shields are fluctuating. Clark watched as the Vorkath cargo ships changed course, exactly as Miller had predicted. Second wave, engage. Another group of converted mining ships appeared from the moon's shadow, cutting off the Vorkath retreat. Caught between 2 forces, the alien vessels attempted a new escape vector. Miller smiled slightly. Right on schedule, 3rd wave in position. Thumi, trap closed perfectly. Within minutes, all 8 Vorkath ships were disabled, their crews unable to offer resistance as human boarding parties secured their vessels. Clark turned to his communications officer. Inform Admiral Kelly that Operation Rockbreaker is complete. The Vorkath supply line to Sector 7 is now cut. In a secure conference room on Earth, Ambassador John Reynolds faced 5 alien diplomats. They represented the most powerful non-human civilizations in the known galaxy. None had offered help when the Vorkath attacked humanity. All were now concerned about the unexpected human response. Your species' military action is causing instability in 3 sectors, said the Andorian representative, his blue antennae. twitching nervously. "The Galactic Council requests that you pursue diplomatic channels instead." Reynolds kept his expression neutral. "When the Vorkath destroyed our colony, did the Council call for diplomacy?" Uncomfortable silence filled the room. "We did not believe humans had the capacity to challenge the Vorkath hierarchy," admitted the Tellarite ambassador. "Their military superiority seemed absolute." "A common miscalculation," Reynolds replied. He activated a holographic display showing footage from recent human victories. "Let me be clear. Humanity sought peaceful coexistence with all species, including the Vorkath. We didn't want this war." He paused, making eye contact with each diplomat. "But we will absolutely finish it." The Andorian leaned forward. "What are your terms for peace?" "The Vorkath must withdraw from all human border regions, pay reparations for the lives lost at Proxima B, and submit to monitoring to ensure no further aggression." "The Vorkath do not negotiate," the Tellarite said. "In their entire history, they have never ended a conflict except through total victory or tactical withdrawal to fight again later." Reynolds smiled slightly. "Then they will learn something new about conflict." After the diplomats left, Reynolds received a secure call from Admiral Kelly. "How did the Council representatives respond?" she asked. "As expected. They're frightened, not of the Vorkath anymore, but of us." Kelly nodded. "Good. Fear can be useful. Meanwhile, our offensives continue to succeed. Clark's operation secured an entire supply fleet intact." "And the Vorkath prisoners?" Reynolds asked. "That's why I'm calling. The first group is ready for you to visit. I think you'll find their reactions informative." Captain Ellie Jackson stood at attention as Ambassador Reynolds entered the secure facility. As head of the first prisoner of war camp for Vorkath soldiers, she had developed protocols based more on human values than Vorkath expectations. "This way, sir," she said, leading Reynolds to the observation room. Through the one-way glass, they could see 20 Vorkath soldiers in a large common area. Unlike human POWs, who might attempt escape or resist their captors, these aliens seemed confused by their situation. "They expected execution," Jackson explained. "In Vorkath culture, captured warriors are killed immediately. When we instead provided medical treatment and basic dignities, they didn't know how to respond." Reynolds watched as human staff distributed food rations. "Have they provided any useful intelligence?" "More than expected. Once they understood we weren't going to harm them, several became quite talkative." "It seems not all Vorkath supported the attack on our colony." A medical officer entered the observation room with a tablet. "Ambassador, we've completed our analysis of Vorkath physiology. There's something you should see." The data showed that Vorkath brain chemistry included elevated levels of hormones associated with aggression and territorial behavior. "Their biology drives them toward conflict," the doctor explained. "Their social structure reinforces it. But it's not uniform across their population. Some show significantly lower levels, especially among their scientific castes." Reynolds considered this information. "A species driven to war by their own biochemistry." "Yes, sir. And we may be able to help them with that." On the Vorkath homeworld, Supreme Commander Koztal received disturbing reports from the front lines. Human forces were not only defeating Vorkath fleets, but were treating captured warriors with unexpected mercy. More troubling were the rumors spreading among the lower castes. Stories of humans developing medicines that could help Vorkath warriors control their aggressive impulses. Tales of prisoners being offered choices rather than death. "These humans are more dangerous than we believed," he told his war council. "They don't just defeat our bodies, they challenge our very understanding of warfare." "What are your orders, Supreme Commander?" his subordinate asked. Koztal stared at the tactical display showing yet another defeated Vorkath fleet. "We must strike directly at their heart. Prepare our reserve forces for a direct assault on the human homeworld." As his officers rushed to comply, Koztal remained alone with his thoughts. The humans fought unlike any species the Vorkath had encountered. They adapted constantly, showed both ruthless efficiency and unexpected mercy, and seemed to understand Vorkath tactics better than should be possible. For the first time in his military career, Koztal faced an enemy he wasn't certain he could defeat. But the hierarchy demanded victory, and so the war would continue, even if it led to their destruction. Supreme Commander Koztal stood before the gathered Vorkath High Council, his scales dulled from stress and lack of sleep. The war with humans had not gone as planned. Not at all. "We have lost 38 outposts," he reported. "Our supply lines are disrupted. The humans do not fight as our simulations predicted." An elder council member hissed in displeasure. "How could our intelligence be so wrong?" "They adapt," Koztal said simply. "Each time we develop a counter to their tactics, they change their approach entirely. They do not follow any recognized warfare doctrine. Then we must strike at their heart," another council member declared. "These humans value their homeworld above all else. If we threaten Earth directly, they will surrender to protect it." Koztal wanted to object. Everything about human behavior suggested this was wrong, but he had no better plan to offer. After 3 months of failed offensives, the hierarchy demanded results. "Prepare our reserve fleet," the head elder ordered. "We will attack the Sol system with overwhelming force." As the council dispersed, Koztal's second-in-command approached. "This is a mistake," she whispered. "I know," he replied, "but we follow orders." Colonel Lisa Bennett stood in Earth's main defense control center, watching as reports came in from across the solar system. For weeks, they had been quietly evacuating non-essential personnel from Earth's orbit, Mars colonies, and the outer system stations. To casual observation, it appeared humanity was preparing for defeat. "Vorkath fleet has crossed Neptune's orbit," announced Lieutenant Sam Cortez. 623 vessels. Bennett nodded calmly. "Right on schedule. Any change to their formation?" "None, Colonel. They're maintaining the same approach vector we predicted." "And our assets?" "All in position. Fleet elements are dark as ordered. Stealth platforms report ready. Mars' defense grid is powered down but prepared for instant activation." Bennett allowed, herself a small smile. When humanity realized the Vorkath might eventually target Earth directly, they hadn't panicked. Instead, they had prepared the largest ambush in military history. "Send the final civilian evacuation notice," she ordered. "Any non-essential personnel still in potential combat zones have 30 minutes to reach shelters." Captain Ryan Howard sat motionless in the command chair of the Thunderchild. The experimental vessel was unlike anything humanity had built before, a perfect fusion of captured Vorkath technology and human innovation. Its phase shift system allowed it to briefly exist slightly out of normal space-time, making it virtually undetectable. The Thunderchild and 30 similar vessels waited in Mars orbit, powered down to minimal systems. To the approaching Vorkath fleet, they would appear as nothing more than orbital debris. "Enemy fleet passing Jupiter," his tactical officer reported quietly, reading data from passive sensors. Howard checked the mission timer. 18 minutes until they reach the engagement zone. Status check. One by one, his department heads confirmed readiness. The crew was calm, focused. They had trained for this moment for weeks. "Remember," Howard told them, "when we activate phase shift, we'll have exactly 42 seconds before system overload. Make them count." Across the solar system, human forces waited in perfect stillness. Thousands of stealth mines floated in carefully calculated positions. Orbital platforms around Mars appeared abandoned but were fully crewed. Civilian defense centers on Earth ran final drills, moving millions of people into underground shelters not out of fear, but according to long-established protocols. In her office at Earth Command, Admiral Kelly watched the approaching Vorkath fleet on her tactical display. She opened a secure channel to all human forces. "All units, this is Admiral Kelly. The enemy believes they are about to deliver a crushing blow to humanity. They expect us to beg for terms when faced with their full might." She paused. "Let's educate them on human nature. Execute Operation Reckoning." As the Vorkath fleet approached Mars orbit, Supreme Commander Koztal felt uneasy. The lack of resistance was troubling. Their scans showed minimal defenses around the Red Planet and fewer ships around Earth than expected. Could they have abandoned their colonies? His navigator asked. "Unlikely," Koztal replied. More likely this is the proximity, alarm screamed. All around them, what had registered as debris suddenly emitted massive energy signatures. Ambush! Koztal shouted. Raise shields! Evasive maneuvers! But it was too late. Thousands of previously dormant mines activated simultaneously, their detonations perfectly timed and positioned. The Vorkath formation, tightly packed for maximum intimidation, became a liability as ships collided with each other in their panic to evade. On the Thunderchild, Captain Howard gave the order, execute phase shift, target their command vessels. His ship shimmered and partially vanished from normal space. When it reappeared, it was inside the Vorkath formation, weapons already firing at point-blank range. 29 other phase shift vessels did the same, materializing at precisely calculated positions throughout the enemy fleet. Around Mars, seemingly abandoned defense platforms blazed to life, their weapons systems powered by energy reserves hidden from Vorkath scans. First wave effectiveness at 87%, Howard's tactical officer reported. Their formation is breaking, Howard nodded. Execute second phase shift, new targets on screen. The Thunderchild vanished again, reappearing moments later inside the defensive screen of the Vorkath flagship. In Earth Command, Admiral Kelly watched as the carefully planned trap closed around the Vorkath fleet. Years of studying their few encounters with the aliens had paid off. The Vorkath were methodical, their tactics built on precise formations and coordinated movements. When those formations shattered, their command structure couldn't adapt quickly enough. Phase 3 is ready, reported her aide. Kelly nodded. Launch the fighter squadrons. From concealed bases on Mars and its moons, hundreds of small, agile fighter craft swarmed into space. Unlike the larger vessels, these were piloted by humans and AI systems working in perfect harmony, their unpredictable flight patterns making them nearly impossible for Vorkath targeting systems to lock onto. Open a channel to the Vorkath flagship, Kelly ordered. Koztal stared in horror at the battle unfolding around his command ship. A third of his fleet was already disabled or destroyed. Human vessels appeared and disappeared using technology his scientists had deemed theoretically impossible. Their attack patterns defied prediction algorithms. Incoming transmission from Earth, his communications officer reported, voice shaking. Put it through, Koztal ordered. Admiral Kelly's face appeared on screen. She looked calm, almost casual, as if they were discussing the weather rather than the destruction of his fleet. Supreme Commander, she said, I believe this is the part where I'm supposed to demand your surrender. Koztal straightened his posture. The Vorkath hierarchy does not surrender. Kelly seemed unsurprised. I thought you might say that. Here's what's going to happen next. My forces will continue to dismantle your fleet piece by piece. Any ship that powers down weapons will be allowed to retreat. Any that continues fighting will be destroyed. You cannot defeat the entire hierarchy, Koztal said. Can't we? Kelly asked. You started this war thinking humans were weak because we preferred exploration to conquest. You failed to understand a fundamental truth about my species. We don't fight because we like war. We fight because we're really, really good at it. She leaned forward slightly. This is your only warning. The next offensive will not stop until your civilization is reduced to history. The transmission ended. Around Koztal's flagship, the battle continued to go badly for the Vorkath forces. For the first time in his long military career, Supreme Commander Koztal gave an order he never thought possible. All vessels, he said, his voice heavy. Power down weapons. Prepare for withdrawal. His officers stared in shock, but complied. As the massive Vorkath fleet began its humiliating retreat, Koztal watched the Earth growing smaller on his view screen. Humans had not just defeated them, they had changed the course of Vorkath history forever. 3 weeks after the Battle of Mars, a single Vorkath vessel approached Earth under a flag of truce. Unlike the sleek obsidian warships that had become notorious across human space, this ship was white with green markings, the colors of the Vorkath Diplomatic Corps, a branch of their civilization humans hadn't known existed until now. The ship was escorted by 4 human vessels to a neutral meeting station in Earth orbit. News channels across human colonies broadcast the arrival. Billions watched as the Vorkath delegation emerged from their ship. In the station's conference room, Admiral Samantha Kelly sat at the head of a long table. Beside her were representatives from 30 human colonies, including Dr. Laura Wright, who had been appointed as Proxima B's voice in these proceedings. The lone survivor now spoke for all those who had been lost. The doors slid open, and 7 Vorkath entered. Their leader, a female with iridescent blue-green scales, wore ceremonial garments that looked uncomfortable and rarely used. This was Tazaraka, the high emissary of the Vorkath hierarchy. "You may be seated," Kelly said, her voice cool and professional. The Vorkath delegation took their places. Tazaraka placed an ornate metal box on the table. "The hierarchy has sent me to present our formal capitulation," she said, the translator, making her clicking speech into flat, emotionless words. "This is not a negotiation. We acknowledge our defeat." Kelly's expression didn't change. "Open the box." Tazaraka complied. Inside was a crystal similar to the one left at the ruins of Proxima B, but golden rather than black. She activated it, and a holographic image of the Vorkath Council appeared. The head elder spoke. "To the leaders of humanity, we surrender unconditionally. We underestimated your species and have paid the price for our arrogance. The hierarchy accepts whatever terms you impose." The message ended. The room fell silent. Kelly finally spoke. "We expected this meeting to be difficult. We prepared arguments, evidence of your war crimes, demands for justice." She looked around at the human delegation. "But unconditional surrender changes things." Tazaraka looked confused. "You will destroy our civilization now?" A murmur ran through the human representatives. Kelly silenced them with a raised hand. "No," she said simply. "That's not what humans do." She nodded to an aide who distributed tablets to the Vorkath delegates. On them were the terms humanity had prepared. Tazaraka read quickly, her vertical pupils widening in surprise. "These terms, they allow us to maintain sovereignty? With conditions," Kelly clarified. "Complete demilitarization of your forces, reparations to the families affected by your attacks, open borders for trade and cultural exchange, and a joint scientific mission to understand why our species are so prone to conflict." The Vorkath delegation whispered among themselves. This was clearly not what they had expected. "We anticipated extinction," Tazaraka admitted. "In your position, the hierarchy would have eliminated all opposition." Dr. Wright spoke for the first time, her voice steady despite facing representatives of those who had destroyed her home. "That's exactly why we won't do it. We're ending this cycle, not continuing it." 6 months later, on a research station, orbiting a neutral world, Dr. Frank Cooper worked alongside a team of Vorkath scientists. Cooper, a xenobiologist with a specialty in comparative neurochemistry, had volunteered for this assignment, despite losing a brother in the war. "These brain scans are fascinating," he said, showing his Vorkath colleague, scientist Mevlok, the results of their latest experiments. "The hormone released during territorial disputes is nearly identical in both our species." Mevlok studied the data. "But humans produce a counter-hormone that we lack." "Exactly," Cooper said. "It allows us to override our aggressive instincts more easily. Your species evolved on a resource-scarce world where cooperation beyond family groups was rarely advantageous. And yet now we must learn this cooperation," Mevlok observed. The research had already yielded practical applications. A synthetic version of the human counter-hormone was being tested as a treatment for the most aggressive Vorkath military castes, helping them adjust to civilian life. Meanwhile, human scientists had adapted Vorkath acoustic technology to create new medical devices that could detect and treat brain injuries more effectively than ever before. What had begun as a peace condition was becoming something more, a genuine collaboration between species. 5 years after the war ended, a ceremony took place on the rebuilt colony of Proxima B. Where once smoking ruins stood, a thriving settlement had risen again. But this time, Among the human buildings were structures designed in Vorkath architectural styles, housing the first permanent Vorkath diplomatic mission to human space. Admiral Porter, now bearing the rank of Fleet Admiral, stood before a mixed crowd of humans and Vorkath. Behind him, covered in ceremonial cloth, stood a monument. 5 years ago, a terrible mistake was made here, Porter began. A misunderstanding born of fear and aggression cost thousands of lives. Today, we remember those lost, but we also celebrate what has been found. He gestured to where human and Vorkath children played together in a nearby park, the young reptilians already speaking fluent English while their human friends attempted the complex clicks and hisses of the Vorkath language. Our species are different, Porter continued. We evolved on worlds light years apart, but we share something crucial, the capacity to learn from our mistakes. He turned and pulled the covering from the monument. It was a simple stone obelisk, with writing in both human and Vorkath languages. At its base were the names of every colonist who had died in the initial attack. This monument bears words that have become famous throughout known space, Porter said. They started a war. We called it Tuesday. By Wednesday, they learned why that was a mistake. He paused, then continued with words not on the monument. And, by Thursday, we learned that enemies can become allies. By Friday, perhaps even friends. As the ceremony concluded, news arrived from the outer sensors of both species. A previously unknown race had been detected approaching both human and Vorkath territories. Their ships were massive, their intentions unknown. In orbit, a joint defense, fleet assembled, human ingenuity paired with Vorkath precision. Where once they had fought each other, they now stood together against whatever might come. On the bridge of the flagship, a human captain and Vorkath first officer exchanged looks. Should we be concerned? The Vorkath officer asked. The human captain shrugged. Maybe they come in peace, maybe not. He allowed himself a small smile. Either way, I think we're ready. In the vastness of space, former enemies now stood as one, their combined strength far greater than either would have been alone. The war that had started with tragedy had ended with something neither species could have imagined, a partnership that would reshape the galaxy for centuries to come, and it had all begun because someone started a war on what humans had simply called a good day for mayhem.